Can you believe it, guys? The Xbox Series X and S as well as the PS5 are already out for 1 year, and what a year it's been. So in today's video we are going to discuss, after 1 year with the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, has the next gen feeling arrived? What features stand out on the respective platforms? What about the games lineup so far, and how is the outlook for the future of both systems? So let's talk about the next gen console experience. Hello gamers from around the world, this is Boxenberger, the video game enthusiast from Germany, with a video on the next gen experience, or by now we have to say current gen experience, cause we've had the systems already for 1 year. And I know it can be frustrating for a lot of gamers cause the consoles are still not available regularly in stores. Unfortunately, the shortage of consoles will continue well into 22, if not into 23, but even though availability is still an issue, live to date sales for both platforms are on a record high, meaning that the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles sold more units in the first year than the PS4 and Xbox One respectively. Be that as it may, I want to take this opportunity to discuss the first year, and for those who are still looking for a new system, fingers crossed that you will be lucky and find one soon, and maybe this video helps you to make your purchase decision. And to see just how good the games are looking on the current gen consoles, you should treat yourself and set your player to full 4K 60 FPS to get the best audio-visual experience I can deliver to you. And while you're at it, please also consider to hit the like and subscribe button, and maybe even turn on the notification bell to not miss out on future content. Okay, thank you guys, you are awesome, and now let's talk about the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X in their first year. Both consoles launched in November 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, and as you all know, the pandemic is still not over, and that had a big impact on game development in the first year, and I bet both platform holders had hoped for a different launch lineup in the first year of their consoles. But we'll talk about the games in a second. Let's first talk about the general experience on the system level, like for instance the user interface. About 1 year ago the discussion was really heavy because PlayStation 5 had a brand new user interface, while Xbox launched their revamped user interface a couple of months prior to the console launch to iron out all the issues. But when we booted up the new consoles, gamers had a brand new interface on the PlayStation 5, and on Xbox we had an interface that we have already known from the previous consoles. And so the discussion in the gaming community was that the PlayStation 5 delivers a brand new experience, while the Xbox Series X and S kind of felt the same like the last gen consoles. Well, in hindsight we have to say that this discussion was probably blown a little bit out of proportion, because while true that on the Xbox the user interface looked the same, the feeling of it was significantly different. On both systems, by the way, because the user interface was simply fast. And I think this is the best way to describe the new experience on both consoles. Menus and whatnot are simply faster because of the SSD and faster memory pool. And while I get the argument that a new user interface definitely feels more next gen than a system that we are already familiar with, I also have to say that the new interface also brings some smaller issues with it. For instance, to this day I cannot see in the installed section in my PS5 library how much storage is left on my hard drive. Nevertheless, I think the discussion was way out of proportion, because the next gen experience is definitely not defined by the user interface. It's about the actual gaming experience and new features. And here we have to say that over the course of the first year, both platform holders added a lot to the experience. PlayStation 5 added the possibility to extend your storage through installing an SSD or to store your games on an external hard drive. But there's no denying that on the Xbox Series consoles a lot more features were added over the course of the first year. Storage extension was already available at launch of the console, and over the first year they added a lot, especially to the backward compatibility program. For instance, Auto HDR, that adds automatically HDR to games that were not built with HDR in mind, was available directly after the launch of the consoles. A few months after the launch, Microsoft also added Auto FPS Boost, where games that ran at 30 FPS automatically get enhanced to 60 FPS without the need of a developer to change something in the actual game. They also added technologies like Dolby Vision to the gaming experience, which simply looks drop-dead gorgeous. Other features like variable refresh rate, in short VRR, was already available at launch of the console. By the way, rumors have it that VRR might be added in December to the PlayStation 5 as well. But in addition to that, we have smart delivery in the Xbox ecosystem, which will automatically install the right version for your game and system. Last year at launch of the consoles, this was labeled as a marketing phrase from Microsoft, but we have learned over the course of this year that it is actually quite important and a convenient feature for gamers. And same goes for automated cloud save files on Xbox, which allows you to simply swap in between systems and your save files are automatically there. And Microsoft also added the possibility to stream games via xCloud to your console, which is particularly interesting for last-gen console owners that still cannot get their hands on an Xbox Series console, because they can now play via xCloud the next-gen games on the Xbox One family. So when we talk about the next-gen experience, the PlayStation 5 definitely had an advantage with a brand new user interface that simply feels new. But in terms of a next-gen feature set, we gotta give it to Microsoft. They have been constantly adding new technologies and features to the ecosystem, and the overall experience in the Xbox ecosystem simply feels seamless and convenient. But we all know that the user interface and features are only a small part in the next-gen experience, and the main question is, how was the gaming experience on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X in the first year? How did the lineup of games look like? And we have to say that Sony delivered with the PlayStation 5 a pretty strong launch lineup. Games like Spider-Man Miles Morales, the Demon's Souls remake, Astro Bot or Sackboy made a pretty strong first impression of the system. And yes, almost all games in the first year were cross-gen, but especially the possibility to play games at higher frame rates at 60 FPS delivered definitely a significant improvement over the last-gen versions. And in 2021 they released games like Returnal, Kena Bridge of Spirits and Ratchet & Clank, which were pretty well received. Microsoft also launched a couple of great games with Psychonauts 2 and Deathloop on the PlayStation consoles. We all know those were publishing deals made prior to the acquisition of the respective studios by Microsoft. Nevertheless, there's no denying that Sony definitely delivered quality gaming experiences in the first year, and the DualSense controller added also a unique new feature to the PlayStation ecosystem. Well, and Microsoft did not really have a proper launch game. The big launch title was supposed to be Halo Infinite, but we all know that this has been delayed for an entire year and is now finally coming out on December 8th. So they heavily relied on third-party games that kept us busy in the first months. Games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs or Cyberpunk. In January we had the exclusive The Medium, but that was about it in terms of exclusive games for the next 6 months. But it really didn't matter too much because Game Pass kept Xbox gamers busy, with major releases coming day and date into Game Pass like Outriders or MLB The Show. Well, and starting during the summer months, Xbox started to release first-party content onto the Xbox ecosystem. The Microsoft Flight Simulator delivered an incredible photorealistic experience, Psychonauts 2 is probably my game of the year so far, and games like The Ascent and Hades also launched in Game Pass. And depending on when you watch this video, Forza Horizon 5 is already out or coming out in only a few days, and of course in December we will get the aforementioned Halo Infinite. So even though the generation started in terms of exclusive games relatively slow on the Xbox, the games from the first party studios are coming out as we speak, and Game Pass is definitely keeping Xbox gamers busy and happy. There was a big controversial about third party games on the next gen systems over the first console year. Microsoft advertised their Xbox Series X as the most powerful console, and when we look at the specs compared to the PlayStation 5, the Xbox console is simply more powerful. However, the first comparisons in between third-party games directly after the launch of the consoles have more than once shown that games seem to run slightly better on the PlayStation 5, and so the discussion came up, why is that? As it turns out, not only a lot of games have been affected by the pandemic and got delayed, but also a lot of development tools and drivers were simply not ready when the consoles launched. Developers were not really able to leverage all that the hardware had to offer, and the PlayStation 5 dev kits were simply more advanced and more comparable to the one from the PS4 era. Over the course of the first year, a lot of new tools were made available to the Xbox developers. We've talked about it on my channel, and we have seen that more and more games seem to perform on the Xbox Series X similarly or even better than on the PlayStation 5. Now, this is all happening while almost all games are still cross-gen and do not really leverage any of the features that the new consoles support. Yes, we have seen games with ray tracing and faster load times, but almost almost all games were only Gen 9 aware, meaning the games knew that they run on the more powerful hardware and that they can run, for instance, at higher frame rates or that the load times are faster, etc, etc. But the true next-gen development features that we know of, at least in the Xbox Series X, like variable ray shading, the velocity architecture, etc, etc, have not been utilized in any of the released games so far. And of course, we need to ask ourselves, when will we see those true next-gen experiences? All games that have been announced for 2022 from Sony are still cross-gen games. Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok will also come out on the PlayStation 4. Does that mean that the games are held back? Not necessarily. If we have learned anything, then it's that graphics are very scalable across many different devices. We also know that on the PlayStation the development kits are very good and developers have had a long time to get adjusted to the PlayStation 5 dev kits, especially in the year 2022 and beyond. And so I expect games like God of War or Horizon Forbidden West to look absolutely stunning when they come out next year. On the Xbox side of things, the last cross-gen game that will come out is going to be Halo Infinite in December this year. Starting as of 2022, all announced Xbox exclusive games will only come out on the current gen hardware, meaning the Xbox Series X and S. Xbox One owners will be able to play these games on their consoles via xCloud, but games like Redfall, Stalker 2 or Starfield will be current gen only games. So yeah, 2022 will be particularly interesting to see if games like Starfield will be able to leverage the velocity architecture, variable ray shading and so on, and how the games will look then on the Xbox Series X. But with that, I already want to wrap it up. We are 1 year into the current generation and what a year it has been. Major discussions across all platforms, major improvements have arrived, we have played a bunch of fantastic games on all systems, and I think that's the good news to take away. You can't really go wrong with either the Xbox Series consoles or the PlayStation 5. Sony has definitely delivered on the exclusive games, but they have also introduced some controversies like misleading communication or a significant price increase of their games. Xbox has not had the best launch lineup, the lack of exclusive content was definitely there over the course of the first 8 months, but this has changed rapidly with major releases coming out more or less every month now, and the outlook of the Xbox exclusive game roadmap has never been more exciting. Since the first year is typically a cross-gen year, I am more than excited for 2022 and beyond to see what the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X are truly capable of. We will be getting the games that were developed from the ground up with next-gen only in mind, using all the next-gen features that are in the hardware. And since this is the most powerful console generation ever, and considering that the games roadmap coming from Xbox and PlayStation over the next years looks absolutely fantastic, I think this generation has the potential to become one of the best gens in gaming ever. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please do not forget to hit the like and subscribe button as well as the notification bell. And if you want to support the channel even further, it would be awesome of you to consider to become a channel member, which will grant you early access to my videos and custom made badges and emojis. But let me thank everyone who supports this channel in any kind of way. You guys rock big time and I truly appreciate your support. And now let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles? Do you feel that the next gen experiences have already arrived? And if you want to strike up a conversation about gaming outside of YouTube, you can also hit me up on Twitter. But for now, thank you very much for watching, I see you the next time and game on!